the numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host Bob Zero. With me in Deadbug Studios
is Coach Nez.
Visit us at zpnetwork.com, zwixonline.com, Facebook at the Nothing Shocking Podcast community fan page, and the Quad Cities Rock and Roll Junkies interest group. We're also on Twitter at No Shock Pod. Where else? Oh, sponsors.
Yeah, our sponsors are Ragged Records, new and used, Davenport, Iowa, and Rock Island, Illinois. We also have Legends Guitar Picks out of Milan, Illinois, and RockstarPicks.rocks out of Queens, New York.
Listen to us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We'll try to read your review on the air. And as always, I want to thank the band Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music. Got a great new album out. Go check them out on Amazon, iTunes, your record stores, wherever you can find it. It's a great album. Both are albums. The last two albums have been great. It's the only two I've heard. If they have more, I'm sure those are great too.
Ted has messaged me because we're going to try to coordinate him coming back to the studio to do
we'll try to have Ted on again.
Yeah, and they're getting a lot of positive feedback on this new album, and he's really excited about it. So hopefully maybe they can get a deal somewhere somehow.
Awesome. That would be great. Our guest this week is Michael Cartellone.
Yep.
Original drummer for Damn Yankees, currently with Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Yep.
Played with a million people. One of the nicest guys we've ever talked to.
The nicest guy we've ever talked to. Yeah.
I had a lot of fun talking to him. It's always fun to talk to a guy this positive. We kept acting like we don't want to ask too many Damn Yankees questions, and he's like, "Oh, ask them all."
Yeah, right.
I love that time. So it's a good interview, a lot of fun. We'll throw to that in a little bit. Before we get there, obviously we talk about the Chicago Open Air every week. It's coming to Bridgeview, Illinois, at the SeatGeek Stadium. System of a Down, Tool, The Cult, Ghost. In this moment, Code Orange. I keep forgetting all the other bands. I don't ever. Gojira.
Yep.
They're the flavor of the month right now for metal bands. They're really good. I like them a lot. But we had Dan Spivack on the show. He books all these Danny Wimmer Presents festivals. Rock on the Range. He does that one. They're all, Carolina Rebellion. All of them. Most of them that are in the U.S. that you hear of, he's kind of the one booking them. And it's pretty insane the lineups he gets every year. And to get Tool and System of a Down on the same bill in Chicago, it's pretty impressive. A lot of these other festivals are in smaller towns, and this was in Chicago, so it's a pretty cool thing. And we got about 10 minutes with him. It was one of those interviews where nothing went right, and it's not his fault. We didn't know we only had 10 minutes with him. We thought we had like 45, so we were taking our time, kind of, asking our questions slowly to get to the big ones. And all of a sudden, we were out of time. Also, my recorder ran out of batteries, so I lost like 30 seconds of the interview. So I'm going to throw you to that interview now before we get to Michael Cartellone. And then once the interview's over, we'll throw to some Hong Kong Sleepover, and then we'll get you to Michael Cartellone. How does that sound?
Sounds really good, yeah.
All right, well, here's our interview with Dan Spivack.
Is it Dan or Gary Spivack?
It is Gary, I believe. I don't know why I keep saying Dan. He's not going to listen to this anyway.
No.
I think.
Call him whatever you want to.
I apologize, Gary.
Mr. Spivack.
If he'd given us 45 minutes, I might have called him Gary. I'm kidding. It was cool to talk to the guy that books all this. It's pretty... He definitely... you can hear him. He's in an office. You can hear the background noise of him being busy. It was... I don't know. I'm impressed with what they do, and I think in a lot of ways they're keeping rock and metal alive in this area, or in the United States. So...
he pulled the big one together, that's for sure.
All right, well, here's our interview with Gary Spivack, and then right after that will be Michael Cartellone after Hong Kong Sleepover.
Good night.
Hello, this is Bob.
Hey, Bob, it's Gary Spivack.
Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Good, good. I had it down on a phoner today.
Yep.
I'm feeling, is that?
That's this. Does this work for you? You good to go?
Yeah, I am. I just want to make sure this is right because it was on it popped up on my schedule.
Yes, this is right. And I mean,
Excellent.
We have two hosts. I have my co-host Eric Nesbitt here with me.
Hello.
Hey.
You
guys hear me okay?
Yeah. You hear us okay? We sound fine?
You do.
All right, good.
Check.
I'm not. I mean, I will just go ahead and start. This is something new for me. Usually, we're interviewing rock bands and stuff. So this is. But I'm excited. I mean,
hey man, I'm just a fan, just like you guys.
Well, I'm an accountant by day. That's my day job. So kind of this end of the.
Yeah, you're smart. So that's good.
But I've always been kind of fascinated on this end of the business, and the festival thing in Europe that had been so huge for so long, and we didn't have that here. We had the touring festivals for so long, and then now they're, the last few years they've been here. What was it? Europe that kind of inspired this, or what kind of got this started?
Well, I'm sorry. Are you talking about a festival in general, or just the overall business?
The weekend festival, kind of that really.
Yeah, I mean, our lane here at DWP minus like a Bourbon and Beyond and a country festival is predominantly a hard rock lane. And about 13 years ago, myself and Danny Wimmer and another partner named Dale Williams, who's still a very good friend to Danny and myself, we noticed like there were some good festivals out there, Coachella, Lollapalooza, Bonnaroo, Austin City Limits, but who was putting on like the rock festival? And what I mean by that is, not metal, not punk rock, just rock and roll. It felt really underserved, and we didn't want to do it in, L.A., New York, Chicago, San Francisco. We wanted to, again, serve the underserved, and we felt there were pockets in America such as the Ohio Valley for Columbus or Charlotte and the Carolinas, north and south, and Aftershock in Northern California, and then, of course, Welcome to Rockville and Jacksonville for Florida and North Florida. And we kind of connected and put together these lineups that where, these rock bands, left and right and down the middle, all come together for a killer weekend, and it works.
I mean, this is kind of a lazy question, but it seems like such an undertaking to make this happen. Like, are you already working on 2020, or when does that?
Yeah, we had a call in 2020 for the fall. We're not even done with the fall for 2019, and it depends. It's a daily siege. It is a lot of work. It's not for the faint of heart at all. You got to be really passionate and know that an answer starts with no and becomes a maybe, and you get to yes.
And is your role? You're kind of the booker. Is that what my understanding that right?
Yeah, I book and curate the festivals along myself and Danny Wimmer.
So what is the starting process for a festival? Do you have bands in mind, or?
Well, we like to start from the top, top down, kind of a domino theory. You don't want to book a bunch of young baby bands and then have no budget left. You want to start at the top and try to kind of secure and identify headliners, which we've done and do, and then work your way down from there. And headliners take, sometimes it's a 5-year plan. You start with an idea, and then 5 years later, you're ready for each other.
Well, here's a kind of a question that we've kind of touched with other artists on. At certain festivals, the opening, like you said, the baby band's the opener of the openers of the openers. A lot of these bands sometimes have to go into it and they have to pay to play. Is there like with what you're doing with the the lower tier bands, maybe more of the unknown underground artist? Is there a bidding process for these bands to get on stage to play at the Chicago Open Air Festival?
With that, it's what I call is it's part super serving. You want to, using Chicago as an example, you want to get your Tool and System of a Down and Ghost and bands like that. You want to super serve, and then you want to partly educate, and you want to try to find passion bands that you believe in that could be the next Ghost or the next System of a Down and the next Tool. Bands like Code Orange or the Fever 333 is a band that we found on a demo tape over a year ago, and lo and behold, they're a Grammy nominee now and doing great. So we love that. We love to educate, and hopefully we need bands for tomorrow. We need the next System of a Downs and the next Tools, and we want to help cultivate those.
You mentioned System of a Down and Tool. When you're putting these festivals together, are you trying to get that's kind of the perfect two bands for
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but are you trying to get bands that are all in the same? I know there's enough variety here that's really cool, but at the same time, they're kind of in a similar enough lane to. Are you thinking about the bands as opposed to having like Def Leppard one night and then Tool the next night? You know what I'm saying? They're closer to the same lane, or does that really not apply?
No, you don't want to. You want to mix it up, but you want to at the same time recognize that these are rock festivals.
Do you go into it with kind of like, I guess maybe more or less tunnel vision, saying, okay, this is the band that we need for this night to be our headliner for Saturday night and for Sunday night? Or is it kind of one of those kind of things where you just if you can't go with option one, do you have an option 2 and 3 and so forth?
Yeah, you have your dream kind of line up, and you put it on paper, and then a day later, a month later, there's red lines and black lines and coffee stains all over it, and and what you end up with usually isn't what you started with, but you want to have the best curation possible, and sometimes the stars do align. Where we won the Foo Fighters at Epicenter, North Carolina, to close our festival, and we got them, and then you can build from there.
In terms of, last year there wasn't a Chicago open air. At what point do you have to say, okay, we'll have to, wait a year? Is that something that you're up to the last minute trying to make it happen, or do you know kind of well in advance that there's not enough time to make this work?
No, that's a good question. We're never gonna force a show down people if it's not right. We're never gonna shoehorn a bunch of bands on. Just because, let's put on a show. It's got to be the right festival, the right bands, got to be the right venue, the right weekend, got to be the right ticket price. So it's got to check all the boxes.
Do you know what happened last year? Was it just that every other band had had different dates in Chicago that it just didn't line up?
Chicago's a tough market. You got Lollapalooza and Riot Fest and Pitchfork and the Cubs and the White Sox. And if you're going to do a show in a market like Chicago, you got to nail it. You got to do it right. And last year we felt, we're only going to give you the best, and we came back for 19 with Tool and System of a Down. I mean, my God, that is a 1-2 punch if I ever heard one.
And I don't know if you get to go to all these shows or not, but that venue is perfect for something like this too.
Absolutely. It's a real kind of American stadium rock feel, but not too big. It's not like a football stadium. I love that. That's what we love about Chicago Open Air, is that it's big, but you can put your arms around it.
Right. And it's so cool. Like I went last year, and Korn's a big band, but not necessarily a stadium band. And to see Korn and Godsmack playing in a stadium and Rob Zombie, it made it so much, bigger than. And I'd seen all those bands a dozen times, and it was just like their energy was so much, almost more than it is in the arena. It was really a cool thing to see. In terms of headliners and stuff, one of the things we talk about with rock music is worrying that who's the next in the pipeline, and you guys are doing a good job of kind of keeping that pipeline going. But at the same time, it seems like after the Foo Fighters, is there another stadium band behind them? You have a bunch of arena bands, but are we running out of? Are we having a hard time getting that torch passed?
Yeah, we don't really fall for that here. The whole rock is dead thing or whatever. We think that's a joke. I mean, Bring Me the Horizon just played the Forum here in L.A. Data Remembers a poised arena band. They're out there. You just gotta work hard at it. But having said that, yeah, it's not flavor of the day, hip hop or EDM or pop or whatever. Rock has always been kind of the other side of the tracks. All the dudes on the grassy knoll. Not the cool kids, the ones that have combs in their back pockets and smoke cigarettes at lunch while the jocks are being bullies or what the fuck or whatever. I know that's a kind of a real kind of general way to say it, but rock has always been the other side of the track. So what we've noticed, if you just put a bunch of great rock bands together at a good venue and the right ticket price, you can win.
Talking about festivals in general, and we've spoke about this to many artists all around Europe and now the States. There's quite a few festivals going around the world yearly, and I guess a lot of artists we've spoke to have believed like this is really kind of the way of the future for artists to get exposed or to keep relevancy as far as touring goes and playing live. I guess, but on the flip side of that, with that being said, how do you keep it fresh to where the festival thing is not an oversaturated product?
Well, America and the world's definitely gone festival crazy, and it's the days of just throwing down some stages on concrete and giving the fans stale beer and corn dogs are over. And if you try that, you're just not going to get anybody to return to your event. You get away with it for a year, but they ain't coming back. So you got to offer them great music, great food and great beverage and great secondary entertainment at a great venue. And that's how you build a brand, and that's what we try to do here with every show we have. Hey, how about one more question?
All right. The Chicago Open Air is kind of what we're promoting, and
Yes.
Getting System of a Down and Tool. What was the process of grabbing those two particular bands who aren't as active when it comes to making new music?
Yeah, that's a good question. Scarcity in rock is very important. So many rock bands just tour and tour and tour because whether it's album sales don't apply to their profits or they're not getting syncs or getting on TV or film licensing, they tour. So it's scarcity is very important for rock, and Tool and System, you're right, do not over tour, do not overplay, and those are two bands that are treasures for us in the world of rock and hard rock, and love that we were able to get these two amazing stadium level bands to headline each night, System of a Down and Tool, and that alone should be the answer to everybody who's thinking about buying a ticket for Chicago Open Air.
Oh, definitely.
And we hope to see everybody there because that's going to be one hell of a weekend.
No, I can't wait. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us.
No, you bet, guys. Some good questions.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for your help. Okay. Bye.
Today's the day the boat comes in and we all go out to sea. Everyone kisses their wife goodbye for a drink along the way. We all go door to door with a shot glass in our hand. And by the time we reach the boat, none of us...
Hello, Michael. Are you there?
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Hey, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I want to introduce you to my co-host, Bob Zerl.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Bob.
Hey.
Well, hey,
How are you?
Great.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for corresponding and your willingness to participate. We're excited to have you.
Oh, well, thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Well, I guess I have to apologize for my ignorance. When I was doing my research on you, when I first kind of started corresponding with you, I was not, I did not know or privy knowing that you are a painter in the art field as well as a drummer. So I guess the whole thing, I want to apologize for my ignorance towards your other part of your career.
No worries. That I'm as much a painter as I am a drummer, to be honest.
I guess that kind of leads to the next question: is have you always have done dual duty in your career as far as drumming work in the rock and roll business and painting as well? Has it been always 50-50 like that for you, or?
It really has. I started painting when I was 4, and I started drumming when I was 9, and basically the two have coexisted and been kind of two halves of a whole my entire life. And on any given day, I'm a drummer who paints or a painter who drums. It just happens to be when you speak with me.
I guess, a lot of painters or artists that I went to high school with. We have a few that are in commercial painting, as far as they went into graphic design and what have you. As far as a medium goes, I mean, are you into? Is it more of oils or watercolor? What do you dabble in?
I work in acrylic, and I did study in every medium when I was in art school. But the reason that I use acrylic is simply because it dries quickly. And several years ago, I realized that I was able to take art supplies with me on tour and paint sitting in hotel rooms during the day and just really make, good productive use of that time. Well, because the acrylics dry quickly, I'm able to pack up the canvas at the end of the night and load it onto the tour bus to repeat the following day.
On a career satisfaction level, in comparison to drumming and painting, do you have does both give you the career satisfaction that you yearn for as a professional artist in both I guess mediums?
They really do. I will say that they satisfy certain things that the other can't, and for that reason, it's hard for me to kind of separate the two. It would be very difficult for me just to do one without the other, because I really have them work, in concert with each other, and they, in my brain anyway, they completely complement and help the other, side of the coin.
Oh, very cool. I guess on the getting towards the rock and roll end of things, there's no secret that you've worked with some of the biggest names in rock and roll. Your big, I guess, maybe mainstream breakthrough was working with Tommy Shaw, Jack Blades, and Ted Nugent, Damn Yankees. Not many artists in the rock and roll field can say that their first mainstream breakthrough was with a supergroup.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Am I totally off when I'm saying that?
No. It was an amazing experience. I had played with Tommy in his solo band for about 2 years before Damn Yankees began. And when Damn Yankees did begin, it was just one of those kind of wonderful, in the right place at the right time kind of things. And it was very apparent to me that, I'm the young, unknown kid from Cleveland in a room with 3 very famous rock musicians. But it just kind of clicked, and the chemistry worked, and it truly turned into a baptism by fire. I mean, that first record was really the first real record I had ever done. I mean, I had done like local recordings and things, but never anything on a national label or on a big, circuit like that. And, that Damn Yankees record, which, by the way, is about to celebrate its 30th anniversary, which is pretty hard to imagine.
It is, yes.
But I could not be more proud of what we accomplished with Damn Yankees. And I will tell you that, the 4 of us have kept in touch and friendly all these years. In fact, I was texting with Tommy Shaw earlier today.
Wow. When you have something like that, you have 3 prolific songwriters. Usually a lot of bands have 1 or 2, and then the rest kind of fill the gaps. How did that, did that work? Was you guys just write as a group, or did they all write separately, or how did you guys create that magic?
Well, it really was kind of a garage band environment. When that band happened, I think Tommy, Jack, and Ted were collectively all in a let's just kind of get together and have fun frame of mind. So, when the band started, it was really informal. And we would, go to each other's homes and sleep on couches and jam in the basement. And it could not have been more stripped back and relaxed. And I think for that reason, the creativity just took over, because it was such a cool environment that wasn't done with this is really serious business. We've got to buckle down here and make this real. It was never like that. It was truly like a garage band. So consequently, everybody was really kind of in their zone because they didn't have to really prove anything. And everybody collectively, Tommy, Jack, and Ted, were offering great song ideas. And, it truly was a band effort, no question about it. And then when we released that first record and then went on tour to support it, at that point, it was really just kind of a studio band. We had done a couple little get up at a club unannounced and play 2 songs type of things, but the band hadn't really performed. So when we went on tour to support the first record, that tour went for 15 months because it became so successful, and it made the record go double platinum. Well, during the course of that tour, the roles then really defined. So when it came time to go into the studio to work on the second record, it was effortless because there was really now this solid band kind of, a singular thought. And it was just great. I have so many wonderful memories of Damn Yankees, and I have people coming up to me all the time talking about it, and I could not be more proud of it.
There's that, in the rock and roll business, when supergroups form, there's always like this kind of flip side negativity to it, that it's never going to work. There's too many egos. In your mind, when it got together, you said it was kind of like you felt like it was a garage band to a certain extent when it first started in its infancies. Did you have any idea it would hit or did you have that inkling that it would hit the stratosphere like it did?
I didn't. I was so green when that thing began, so I had no idea what to expect. I think Tommy, Jack, and Ted wisely kind of took it very slowly, and rather than get too caught up in what this could be, we just kind of let it happen organically. And I think for that reason, that's why it has had kind of this lasting quality all these years.
Has there ever been a thought of like popping up at a festival and just kind of doing a surprise performance, a one-off or something like that ever again, or is it pretty much done?
Well, it is not done because we actually never really did break up as a band. We just kind of we went on this self-imposed hiatus that has gone on for a long time. But I will tell you that every now and then we do get on the phone and we start comparing schedules to see if there could be a window where we could maybe go out and do a few dates. It has not worked out yet because you have 4 very separate, demanding careers that are really hard to kind of coincide. So I will tell you that anything is possible regarding Damn Yankees doing something, but at the same time, I will tell you that that no one is really willing to stop what they're doing right now. I've been with Skynyrd for 21 wonderful years now, and Tommy is on fire with Styx, and Night Ranger and Jack are working all the time, and Ted is, I think, running for president or something. Ted's always busy.
He's hunting, touring, yeah.
It really is, it's not about the desire, and I think at some point a window will present itself, and when it does, I think we'll surprise everybody and just show up out of nowhere.
I do have kind of one last question before I guess we move on from Damn Yankees. I got the chance to talk to Ted a couple years ago, and he just is. He always seems like he's on. Is he when he's not on front of the microphone? Is he the same guy there, or is it a different guy?
Well, he will tell you it's a full-time job being Ted Nugent, which is true. I will tell you this: when Ted is around, when Ted is around you for enough amount of time, he'll flick that switch off. But he doesn't flick that switch off very often. You gotta love him for it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I have one more Damn Yankees question before we kind of move on. And I guess
we don't have to move on. I could talk about Damn Yankees all night.
Okay, oh, very good. Well, okay, so the success of the band, we talked about the success. You toured for 15 months. The sales were fantastic. Obviously, the tour was fantastic. When you have something that successful that becomes so big, how do the members of the band then break away and not have that band be the priority? Am I confusing there on what I'm trying to say?
No, not at all. Yeah. I mean, I can give you kind of the Cliff Note version here, which is, so we did the 2 albums and the 2 tours, and that spanned about a 5-year period. At that point, Ted had this solo album that he had been years late on delivering, and he said, look, when we take this break, I'm going to go ahead and bang out this solo record if that's okay with you guys. And everyone said, well, of course, we're taking some time off. Well, Tommy and Jack used that window of opportunity, and they did a duet record that came out on Warner Brothers, which was the same label that Damn Yankees was on. That record was called Shaw Blades, and I actually did some recording with Tommy and Jack on that record, and then right after Ted released his solo album, I went on tour with him to help him promote it. So the immediate thing that happened were those 2 events. After those were done, we then got back together to start writing songs for the 3rd Damn Yankees record. At which time, the whole grunge scene with Nirvana and Pearl Jam was bubbling under out in Seattle. Mm-hmm. So the music scene was starting to change. And consequently, Warner Brothers came to us, and we had one more album to deliver to them. And Warner Brothers said, you know what? We're changing our whole structure. We're going to focus on this newer sound, this grunge thing. So we're going to buy you guys out of this last album. So we did not do the 3rd album for Warner Brothers. However, we kept writing material for it. Well, fast forward, 5-6 months, the next summer comes around. Tommy has an opportunity to go out on the road with Styx, which he does. Jack goes out on the road with Night Ranger. Ted asks me to go out on the road with him again with the Nugent Band, which I do. So we all do that for that summer. We come off of the road. We got back together again and continued writing Damn Yankee songs. That cycle went on for about 5 years, where we ended up with about 20 Damn Yankee songs in the can that we had recorded over this period of time. Every time we would take a break, Tommy would go back off with Styx, Jack with Night Ranger, and now at this point, I've now joined Skynyrd, yet the Damn Yankees thing is still it's still going on. Well, fast forward over the years, we started to individually focus more on our individual careers and less on Damn Yankees. So we simply just never got back to it. But as I say, there was a lot of work done toward a third record that never came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing story.
Yeah, it's probably not that unusual of a story, to have worked with a group of guys and continue doing so, albeit it starts to get a little more fragmented, but you end up with this body of work. And in this case, we demoed a bunch of really cool stuff that, most people haven't heard. And maybe one day will.
Oh, our fingers are crossed.
Yeah, mine too.
Let's talk a little bit about Skynyrd. The fascinating thing about Lynyrd Skynyrd is that there's no other band that has suffered more tragedy than that band has. With all the situations that have happened.
Sure.
I guess more bands should take the philosophy of survival, and you can do. It's very inspiring to see everything that the band like Lynyrd Skynyrd has been through, and they're still going and they're still making music for people to listen to. I guess, how did that all come about for you? The opportunity. You've been with them 21 years? You said.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, I first met the Skynyrd guys on the Damn Yankees' first tour. We had gone through Jacksonville. It was the summer of 1990, and I remember hearing that Johnny Van Zant and Artemis Pyle were in the meet and greet after the show. And I thought, oh, that's cool. So I went in there and went up to both and introduced myself. And so that's when I first met them. The music business is a small business, and you find yourself running into people from other bands all the time, whether it's you're on the same bill or by chance you're in the same hotel. And so I began to see the Skynyrd guys now and then socially here and there, just because it's the nature of the business. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, they were in 1998 doing a tour. I had spent that year playing drums with John Fogerty, which was an amazing experience. Mm-hmm. And Tommy Shaw had an opportunity to go out as the opening act for Skynyrd. And he asked me if I wanted to do it with him, and we did some of his solo material. So we spent about a month on the road with Skynyrd. Well, unbeknownst to me at the time, they were thinking about changing drummers. And apparently they were watching our show, thinking that maybe I was the guy. And in fact, when the tour ended, they began recording a record. At this point now, they had moved on from that drummer, and they were recording a record with a studio drummer, Kenny Aronoff, who's a brilliant drummer. Mm-hmm. Now, Kenny, of course, has an amazing history. Well, I had stepped in for Kenny when he left the John Fogerty gig, which was kind of a bizarre set of circumstances, because now Kenny is in the studio recording with Skynyrd, and it just so happens that the guy that produced Damn Yankees, Ron Nevison, was producing the Skynyrd record that Kenny Aronoff was playing on. So they came into Nashville to record, and I was there at the time. And Nevison invited me down to the studio just to come out and hang. And he said, well, you know everybody here, so why don't you just come down and visit, which I did. And then they asked me to do percussion on that record, which I did. And then they asked me to join the band, which I did. So, the Skynyrd thing was just kind of a nice culmination of a lot of the people were connected and knew each other in various circumstances. And again, it was kind of right place at the right time.
When you join an established band like that, how long is it before you feel like, a member, a contributing member, and not just a hired gun, or do you ever feel that way?
Well, I will tell you that they have a very welcoming, you're one of the family environment, and it happens just instantaneously with these guys. It's that Southern hospitality. And it's a real thing because I felt it right away. I felt it when I was just in the studio doing percussion on the record. Walking into something that's so, well established, you quickly learn what it is that you need to deliver. And in this instance, they gave me the song list. Most of the songs I already knew from, playing them when I was in high school in garage bands. So I didn't have to learn how to play Freebird because I had played it when I was a teenager. But now to play it with them was like a really cool experience. So I very quickly just kind of, slid into my position and gave them, drumming-wise, what they needed. And, it just right out of the gate, it just felt very, very comfortable. And, again, when you're playing songs that are so iconic, like Freebird and Sweet Home Alabama and on, you can't really mess around with the tune that much because everybody knows how it goes. And if you start to take too many liberties, it's just not going to sound right. So there's a certain kind of freedom in that, knowing that, okay, I learned the part, and then I present it in my way, but you don't stray from the nuts and bolts of what the song is, because it's just going to do it a disservice. So for that reason, learning the material and then rehearsing with the band and then going out on tour at the very beginning was a very comfortable, smooth transition for me because I learned the material and just kind of went in and just did what they needed. And, it's been wonderful. 21 years later, I still get to play all these wonderful songs. And, we still have a lot of people that come out and want to hear it.
You mentioned it being kind of freeing. I've heard, some drummers talk about how it's almost more difficult to keep it reined in than to, show off all your chops. And, I guess, do you kind of feel that way? Is it more of a challenge to, just play the part as it is? Obviously bringing your own flavor to it, but instead of just kind of going off and, showing everything you can do?
It certainly can be a challenge to rein yourself in, as you say. I tell you what happened, and this is just human nature. That very first tour, I just stuck to the guns, and I just played it as written. And then, the second year, I started to experiment a little bit here and there, and maybe the third year, experiment a little more. And then what I then saw was I was starting to pull away from the song because I had just been starting to play too much. And then what happens is you stop in your tracks and then you rewind back to the purity of what the song was originally, and all of a sudden it becomes fresh again.
That's cool.
And that cycle, to a certain degree, has repeated itself in my 21 years. Maybe not to the extent that it first did, where I had maybe started to play too much. Not a disservice to the song, but playing far more than the song needed. I haven't let myself get to that extent anymore because frankly, it's more fun for me just to play the song for the song, and it's every musician's challenge, whatever their instrument is to play for the song and to serve the song. There's always going to be a time to show off your chops, but it's not while someone's trying to sing a lead vocal and get an emotion across of what the song is trying to say. And I guess that's just part of the learning curve of learning when to do it and when not to.
They're such a legendary band. I mean, almost to the point where you take them for granted. They're so big. I mean, but you go to a concert, whether it's Slayer or Britney Spears, someone's yelling Freebird out at some point.
You're right. I mean, I've literally been in a comedy club and heard someone in an audience yell Freebird to a stand-up comic. That's insane, right? But that just shows you it's become part of kind of the pop culture. It's like part of our fiber. That song has just taken on its own life. A friend of mine once said, Freebird is the American Stairway to Heaven. And I got to tell you, I don't think that's very far off.
Yeah,
I think it's that iconic.
Well, and in some ways, I mean, I don't want to. Stairway to Heaven's a masterpiece, but it's, Freebird's been played a lot too, but Stairway's almost been overplayed at this point, and and Freebird's so long that it.
Again, I mean, maybe if we were having this conversation in England, people would be feeling differently. But I got to tell you, you'd be hard pressed to find a more iconic song than Freebird, and I would put Sweet Home Alabama right behind it.
Mm-hmm.
These are songs that are bigger than any band member. Well, you know what? Let me take that back. God bless Ronnie Van Zant, because they were his vision. But these songs have lived all of these years, and the band as it is now has had a lot of personnel changes. Certainly in my 21 years, we've had a lot of personnel changes. But when you've got songs that stand the test of time, the way Freebird and Sweet Home Alabama do, they become bigger than the individuals performing them.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Absolutely. I kind of want to take this a little bit of a different direction. Outside of your work in Damn Yankees and Lynyrd Skynyrd, a lot of rock and roll fans do not realize that you've worked with some of the biggest personalities in the rock business. Whether it be ego or the eccentric, I should say, or renowned virtuosos. I guess the likes of working with a person like a Vince Neil or a John Wetton or Peter Frampton or Joe Lynn Turner, John Fogerty. How has that shaped you as a musician, and I guess maybe your personality wise?
Well, the one thing that it did for me as a musician is it gave me a wider vocabulary. So consequently, I've had the very good fortune of being able to play with people of various styles in various genres. I'm on a Cher record, and there's one that is completely off the list of what you just said. So having the opportunity to work with different people, I believe it just makes you a more mature, experienced musician with a bigger vocabulary. And I've done British progressive rock. I've done jazz. At one point, I was doing some country stuff with an artist in Nashville. So when you have the opportunity to play in these different styles, it will only embellish you as an individual. And, that melting pot of all those different experiences will, culminate into a musician that has that much more to say.
Absolutely. I guess, everybody knows about the documentary, the Hired Gun documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever felt, although you've been in Skynyrd for 21 years and you were in Damn Yankees for a fair share of time, do you ever felt or feel as though that you were part of that hired gun community of musicians?
Of course. I mean, I wouldn't say that applies to Skynyrd, but, I've certainly done my share of, hired gun-esque work, and, it's all valid. It all adds up to another slice of the pie that just, makes you who you become. And, when you go into something, the Fogerty tour, that was absolutely a hired gun thing. But it was a great experience, and I had so much fun working with John, and I respect the hell out of him. I mean, the body of music that he created is just mind-boggling. But that was truly just a sideman gig, and he was very specific about what he wanted, and as long as you delivered it, everything was great. And I just had the best time on that tour. I just loved it.
Do you have to be a fan of the music to enjoy playing it live? And the reason I ask that is, like, I dabble on guitar in my basement. I'm not an artist by any means, but I find myself, although I'll play songs, I like playing certain songs that I would never listen to. I mean, I don't. So I've always kind of wondered, as an artist, can you just enjoy the drumming and not really care for the song while you're up there, or do you need both?
It certainly helps if you like the material that you're playing. Of course, we've all been in a position where we're playing a song that may not be our cup of tea stylistically, but part of being a professional is not having that affect what you deliver. And, I would say for the most part, I've been very fortunate that, I've been hired to play music that I actually have enjoyed playing and would have listened to on my own.
I have two more questions for you, but the first one is equipment-wise, you play Pearl drums and Zildjian cymbals. How long have you partnered with those two businesses?
I am proud to say that those endorsement relationships are 30 years old. They are the first and only drum and cymbal endorsements that I have, and I got those endorsements when I was with Tommy and his solo band. Mm-hmm. It was 1987 to be specific, and we were the opening act for Rush. We went out with them on a 4-month arena tour, which was amazing, and that was when I hooked up with those companies, and I've been with them since. Oh,
fantastic. Okay, so last question. I always like to throw a curveball question. So,
sure.
In 1994, I had the pleasure of seeing you play in Davenport, Iowa with the Ted Nugent Band on the virtual reality tour in support of, I believe it was a Spirit of the Wild album, correct? Is that correct?
Yes. Was Derek St. Holmes in the band then?
Yes, yeah. He was. So it was,
great singer.
Yeah, It was yourself, Ted, and Derek. Okay, so on bass, I was unsure who was on bass on that tour. Was it Pat?
I can tell you who it is.
Was it Pat Badger? Was that who the bass player was at the time? Mm-mm. No.
A guy named Michael Lutz.
Michael
was a guy out of Michigan, and he was from the band Brownsville Station.
Oh,
Smoking in the boys' room.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So that was all this time. I remember I was at the show. I got front row balcony seats. It's at the Adler Theater in Davenport, Iowa. I'm watching you guys play. I'm going, I think that's Pat Badger from Extreme. I kept saying that to my girlfriend at the time. I was wrong. So there you go. Anyway,
no worries.
That was the curveball question. So before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to plug or promote?
I would. I will tell you quickly what is going on in Skynyrd world. We are getting ready to kick off this year's tour. Most of it is here in the States. However, we do have a European and UK run in the summer, which is going to be fun. Back in September of 2018, we filmed a concert in Jacksonville, Florida, the band's hometown. We played at the football stadium there in front of 50,000 people.
Awesome.
And that was filmed to be released as a DVD, and of course it'll be an audio CD as well. So that's going to be coming out soon. And this one's really fun, but I can only just kind of tease you with this one. But I have a fun little project that I'm doing on my own, and I've reached out to a couple buddies to help me with it. And those people would be Tommy Shaw, and from Cheap Trick, Rick Nielsen and Tom Peterson.
Fantastic.
Wow.
And a few months from now, when I can tell you more about that, we'll do another podcast, and I'll give you the full story.
Well, fantastic. Well, that's exactly what we want, is our guest to come back on. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, those guys, all three of them are Chicago Rockford guys, right? Or is Shaw from somewhere else? I know Styx is from Chicago.
Tommy is actually from Montgomery, Alabama. Of course, Cheap Trick is Rockford, as you say. Now, when Tommy joined Styx, he had to Chicago,
right?
Because that was a Chicago band.
All right.
I've known the Cheap Trick guys forever, and we did a fair amount of dates with them on a Skynyrd bill last year, and so this fun little side project kind of unfolded, and I asked them if they wanted to help out. So it's pretty fun, but I'll just tease you with that.
I was just going to ask if they were as big a Cub fans as you are Indian fans.
We've never spoken about baseball, but I appreciate that I'm an Indians fan. Oh well, born and raised, it's who I am.
Okay, so possibly when are we gonna know more about this project? Is there any kind of timetable you can kind of give us?
I can tell you in about 2 months, I can give you a lot more information.
Okay, so here's the deal then. How about in 2 months this summer, you email me and contact me so we can have you back on so we can talk a little bit more about this project. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well,
and you know what? I will tell you, I will be in the middle of the tour, so it'd be better if you email me because I won't remember.
All right, that's a deal. Okay, so
fair enough.
Yeah, this is how it's going to work. We have a couple of episodes one episode we have to release before yours. So we're thinking maybe this episode should be released, Bob, about 2 weeks or so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So then Bob's the editing wizard for all this. So when he gets it all put out, I will email you the link. And then please share it if you have any social media that you would share it on. That'd be fantastic. And
I do.
Okay.
Facebook and Instagram. I'll put it on both.
Fantastic. And then we have our social media, and and we'll be in contact with you. How about that?
Sounds good. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.
You too.
Have a good night.
Bye.
All right, bye. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I wanna let her go. The last time he went to sea, she did things he doesn't know. She started a special service and was popular in town. And every time the men showed up, her trousers were down. Oh, stagger, stagger, crawl, stagger, drink. Crawl, crawl, stagger, crawl, stagger, drink. Fall down with a glass in your hand, you better get up and drink. Stagger, stagger, crawl, stagger, drink. But he tends to look like a sheep, he don't want to say goodbye. He spends a wee bit of time with them away from bright eyes. You hear them bleat their tune out, and each one sounds so dear. And when he comes out from behind the barn, he's swelling from ear to ear. Oh, stagger, stagger, crawl, stagger, drink. Crawl, crawl, stagger, crawl, stagger, drink. Fall down with a glass in your hand, you better get up and drink. Stagger, stagger, crawl, stagger, drink. Nicky's got him an ugly woman, she's only got one tooth. She runs the house with an iron fist, it's she who rules the roost. She broke his leg
cigarette.
I'm a smoke. Go! Go! Go!
Goddamn Hong Kong sleepover. What the shit was that? You can't even end a song without some kind of distorted shit. You once were a solid band. What the hell is going on? But now you can't even finish a fucking song. It's amazing people even come to hear your shows. You guys suck. You're the kind of band that have a Velvet on Elvis on your fucking studio. You know that son of a bitch died eating a fried peanut butter and banana sandwich while taking a dump? Yeah, that's what I think of your music. Oh, welcome to Planet Piss in the fucking Hong Kong sleepover. Jesus Christ, why don't you go duck somebody's head in a bucket of water and hit them from behind? Kiss my ass. You pieces of shit. You suck. Absolutely horrible. Nobody likes your music. It's time for you people to go away. Get the fuck off my obstacle. You fucking people don't understand the worst thing about a goddamn piece of music. You understand me, you 12 awful no good sons of bitches? Fuck you!